Don't put
Mm.
that garbage on my steak. Oh, but it makes it better. No, 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 no. I want to taste the meat. I don't want to taste sugar and vegetable oil. No, 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 no. And I have to argue, but now they know, if you're going to cook Rick a steak, don't put anything on it or he'll give it to the ducks.
The ducks can enjoy the porterhouse steak.
Oh, I give the ducks anything that has sugar on it, bread and
Mm.
pasta, whatever. If somebody gives me something I don't want to eat and they insist that I have it, I give it to the ducks. That's
Mm.
all. I've had people give me breads and the bread's going bad. Okay, I give it to the ducks. But yet they say, oh, don't feed it to the ducks. It's bad for them. So yeah, but you're eating it. What's the difference? Well, we can eat it, they can't.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
think
it,
so.
it's bad for them the same way it's bad for us. Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point.
The
Yeah.
thing is, I don't worry about my ducks because they eat mostly insects and plant materials. So even if they eat the garbage, they can always go out and find the good stuff.
So are these just ducks that are these actually your ducks, or they just kind of they stay around your place because you tend to feed them, or
Yeah, well, they're not my ducks. I live in the suburbs, and it's illegal to have any kind of livestock because the government here is crazy. So
Hmm.
they're just neighborhood ducks. They're the Muscovy ducks, the ones that people don't like. And I feed them, and they hang around here. I have a little pond where they can live in. And what I do, I got my neighbors on my side because we had a terrible overpopulation of ducks. They were just taking over the neighborhood, ducks everywhere. So I said, look, when you see the ducks nesting, call me and I will take care of it. And what I do, I take the eggs out, I replace them with fake eggs, I leave them one or two real eggs, and the mama will sit on the nest for about 5 weeks, hatch the real eggs, and then she walks around with two ducklings. But before that, there could be 20 ducklings. Sometimes there'd be ducklings everywhere, and they were just taking over. And then people like to feed them, and they don't want to
Hmm.
get rid of them. So I said, okay, we can manage the population. If we get too many eggs, I eat the eggs. And then on top of that, we get too many ducks, I'll just start eating the ducks. And then that way, yeah, I mean, it keeps the population stable. And I try to explain to one of the vegan ladies that I know that thinks that I'm a murderer. I said, when you have too many animals and you don't have enough food, what's going to happen? They're going to starve. They're going to either get a disease or starve. And there's another lady not that far from here that feeds the ducks, and she must have had over 100 ducks. Then they had a virus and they were dying right and left. There were ducks dead all over the place. There were ducks with what they call angel wing that was deformed. They had feet that were it was terrible. It looked like a mutant duck factory. But my ducks around here, they're healthy. There are no, injured ducks. I keep the population below 30. And when we get
Hmm.
too many ducks, then I just pick the ones that are the meanest and the most difficult to deal with. I send them to the side yard. I have a special place where I feed them lots of food, lots of fruits and vegetables, and there's bugs over there for a couple of weeks. And then when the time comes, and then
Hmm.
Ducky ends up in the kitchen, and Ducky's delicious.
And duck meat, I've eaten it, but it was so long ago. Duck meat's kind of fatty, right?
Not
No?
these ducks. The
Uh,
regular the regular duck that you would buy, like for example, I think the Asians were the first to domesticate ducks,
uh-huh.
and they developed what we call the Pekin ducks, which are white and they have
Uh,
the yellow beak,
uh,
and they're the cute ducks that you see a lot on the internet. Well, what we
yeah.
have here are called Muscovy duck. They're
Uh-huh.
like the bad boy of the duck world. People think they're ugly. They have warty heads and they're
Ah.
double the size of the other ducks, and they tend to be a little aggressive. They have big claws, and people look at them like, "Oh, that's terrible." But those are partially wild. They're not domesticated. They're feral domesticated ducks, so they have very little fat. In fact, most of the ones that I've eaten had no visible fat. If you want them to get fattened up, then you have to put them in captivity for a month and feed them a lot of junk food. You give them chips and candies and a lot of bread. That's the thing.
Hmm.
You give them a lot of bread, and then if they don't have a heart attack, then you can go ahead and cook them, and the meat will be it'll have that marbled, fatty,
Uh,
almost like that Kobe beef that you're famous for over there. They
yeah.
become really lazy. They can barely walk. They can't fly. They just waddle around and eat all day.
Hmm.
So that's the only way you can make them fat.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you in on a secret. That's exactly what bread was doing to me as well. It was marbling my stomach very, very nicely until I managed to give it away.
Did you eat a
It's
lot of bread before that?
yeah. I've always eaten a lot of bread as as a kid, I'd have a soup, mum would make soup, and I'd go through half a loaf of bread, dipping the bread in the
Wow.
soup. And yeah, my stomach was just like it was like a beer belly.
Wow, that's terrible. I know
Yeah.
when I was a kid, a lot of times when I would go sent to school, I had a sandwich. Sometimes my mom would give me a bologna sandwich. I would eat the bologna and the cheese, and then I'd give the bread to the ducks outside the school. I never really liked bread. It's just not one of those things. When we go to eat out, sometimes they'd have like a basket with bread in it, and they had these little butter things wrapped in paper. I would eat all the butter things and leave the bread there. My mom
Yeah.
says, "No, you're supposed to spread the butter on the bread." I said, "Why am I going to waste my time with this knife trying to push butter onto the bread when I could just eat the butter and leave the bread?"
That's a very good point. The prize there is the butter, not the bread. And yeah, it's
Right.
just gonna rip the bread to shreds anyway, right?
Exactly.